Hi, and welcome to episode 17, lucky 17, all right? I'm Jenn Rice, and this is the Functionally Fit podcast. And today my guest is Melanie Cross. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you so much.
Melanie, I don't know where to start with her because I've been learning so much about what she's doing. I have found it fascinating and as well as very educational. It's something that I really don't know much about, even though I did a functional medicine fellowship. Melanie is a nurse practitioner by trade and was conventionally trained in like I was, but she is doing functional plant medicine, is a health consultant. She's out in Denver, Colorado. Yay, Colorado is such a great state. But welcome, and I'd love to kick it off just by you, if you would just kind of share with us a little bit about how you even became a nurse practitioner and sort of where that journey has led you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. So I always wanted to go. I've had a love of science and a love of like the human body since I was my whole life. And I had initially planned to go to medical school and started going down that route. And I was like, actually, I don't know that I want to do this. So went into nursing school and then went on to graduate school as a nurse practitioner. And my love of medicine, love of science all started. My dad died when I was 7 and of a heart condition. And he was 34. And it was just like that. I've always wanted to find ways to help people so they can live full, healthy, happy lives. And it really finding my way through the conventional medicine model for 20 years, I was like, I'm not helping people live their healthiest life. I'm not helping them get better. There's definitely got to be a better way. And then that led me into functional medicine. And I've been a advocate and a lover of cannabis and supporter. So it just kind of meshed the two together. And here I am.
So, well, thank you again for being here. But I wanted to just back up a little bit to your dad and that experience. I mean, 34. I mean, that's incredibly young. And was it something that was, obviously a surprise? And had he been feeling unwell, or was there any sort of family history, or was there really no warning signs at all?
Well, I think like the short answer to your question is the warning signs were probably ignored, which I think a lot of us do. Like we just kind of like muscle through and ignore our bodies and ignore what things that, I was 7 at the time. We didn't have this conversation, of course, but he had a heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome.
Oh.
And this was 1987 in rural Nebraska, and it wasn't, there wasn't any urgency to do anything about it. Fast forward maybe a year or so, like an ablation, takes care of it right then and there. So
right. Yeah. So so that happening to you as a young person and making such an impression, that has probably been something that carried you obviously first into nursing and then into nurse practitioner. Were you a nurse for a number of years, or did you go right into being a practitioner?
I worked as a nurse for 5+ years. I worked in the ICU and the emergency department at a level 1 trauma hospital and public health facility.
Okay, so you saw a lot of critically ill patients with the ICU, and then you went on to become a nurse practitioner. And you practiced in family practice, like general family medicine, right? Seeing all ages.
I did. Yeah. So when, working in the ICU, I was like, okay, how do I help people from getting to the ICU? Let's go down to I'm like, I'm going to go down to the emergency department and let's see about what I can learn there. And I was like, okay, how do I keep people from getting to the emergency department? Oh, primary care. That's it. That's a preventative place where that happens. So that's where I spent the big bulk of my nurse practitioner career, was in primary care. And then I'm like, this isn't doing it either.
So I'd love for you. So one thing I was reading about you was your own sort of hitting the wall. It reminded me of, well, a little bit of my story and some of the stories of other healthcare providers. I read, I think you had noted that you were, obviously working at a high level, and we're super proud. I don't want anyone listening to this to think that, oh, we're not crying, poor us, healthcare providers, we're so overworked. But I think there is a state of like taking so much care of others that there doesn't seem to be as much left in the tank for yourself. And you had, I quoted you as saying like you were feeling like a zombie, exhausted, kind of just muscling through the day, hoping to get through with some energy to have for your family at the end of the day. And that was also a main catalyst to you, well, seeking alternative, I don't even know if we want to call it alternative anymore, but like, I guess you'd say a more holistic approach to your own wellness. Can you share a little bit about that time in your life and what was going on? And I think that could really maybe be helpful for someone listening who may be going through the same thing right now.
Absolutely. Yes. So I was around 38 when I think things were starting to really peak. I pushed stuff aside for years. But so around 38, I wasn't sleeping at all. Had no energy, the zombie, but I like to say the zombie on crack. Cause I was like, go, go, go. Like always like psycho hyper scheduled, like go, go, go all day long. Life was completely dictated by a clock from like the second I woke up.
Your cortisol was like flying up here 24/7.
Yeah. Or when I say the second I woke up, the second I couldn't fall back asleep because I was like waking up in the middle of the night, like unable to fall back asleep. And, I think I was starting to feel some like anxiety and depression. And those were new symptoms for me, or stuff that I really wouldn't acknowledge that I was feeling. And I kind of just pushed it aside and blamed it on like, this is what this life is. This is what happens when you have kids. This is what happens, as you get older. This is what I signed up for with my nurse practitioner job. And just kind of going through that for, that time period. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I have become my father. And I am ignoring my health. I'm putting everything in front of my health. I'm putting my job, my family, everything in front of my health. And I know how that story ended. And I don't want that to be my story. Yeah. So I had to like take a step back and really evaluate how I was feeling. And so I'm like, all right, I got to do something. And I knew I wouldn't get my answers in conventional medicine because that's where I had been working for 20 years. And I knew how that story would go. Again, I didn't want that to be my story, getting maybe a thyroid checked, getting your TSH checked and told you're fine, great news.
Yeah, I was reading that you were, your labs were normal, but you were still just feeling awful. And I wanted to before we go in a little bit to the functional medicine that you currently practice, one thing I think I don't want anyone to miss is this. There is this resounding feeling, because I had it myself, of guilt around not being able to feel like you could perform at the level that you thought you could for as long as you could, for as much as you could. And like any caregivers, people in, maybe high moving jobs, that could be anything. I mean, there's this guilt sort of wrapped into not feeling okay anymore.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I mean, I had that. Did you have that? And then you're just sort of like, now that I work 3 days a week, I'm like, there's a little bit of that still that weaves its way through because of the things we tell ourselves about what we should be doing and what everyone's always done. And
the expectations and pressure that we put on ourselves. And that, I think we probably both share this, like being this kind of type A, like high producing, high achieving, maybe personality, like, oh, if I can't cut it, like I'm a failure. and I'm not going to fail. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving in to like taking care of myself. I'm just going to keep on pushing through.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think that when we talk about a big life pivot, we ideally want to have those before it's too late to have those, or before it's too like really, or until there is some sort of chronic ongoing condition that it's really hard to then get back in front of. So when you found functional medicine, did you find it first as a patient, or had you just then, were you using it for yourself, or how did that work out?
It was kind of a little bit of both. I kind of was, I'd started working with clients on using cannabis, and after I'd used it for myself and figured out like getting my sleep in check, like pretty quickly, while I was starting to figure out like, why wasn't I sleeping? It's not because my kids were waking me up. They were 5 and 7, like that. That wasn't.
Yeah. So I want to go to the elephant in the room here is like when you say the word cannabis. This is funny because I was just talking to a friend of mine last week who was saying, yeah, you think about cannabis, you think about like a lot of people think about Chika Chong and smoking, like lots of plumes of smoke, but I think if we could just like also share with anyone listening, like how are people even using cannabis? I mean, I know that a lot of people just immediately jump to, and I do even have an internal, it's almost like an internal check in my mind that's like starts to turn off when I hear that, because I think about smoking pot, and you know what I mean? So if we could kind of go in a little bit about the science of cannabis and how people are using it. Did you use it as a cream? I mean, like, how did you even come about it?
Yeah. When I used it, so around the 38-year-old time, I started off with a tincture, and I love that you're asking this question, because this is such, like, it is like everybody hears cannabis, they just think like Cheetos and a couch and like movies and lots of smoke.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, and you're like, oh, that was ninth grade, or I don't even know, whatever. And you're just, yeah, I don't even, I think it's just an important thing to bring up, because I think a lot of us, I know a lot of people in my age group, certainly probably in yours too, maybe just kind of there's some even almost negative connotation around it, right?
100%, like so much stigma around it. And you can't, you can lay on the couch and eat Cheetos and watch and do that. But that's not, I mean, people aren't coming to me to find out how to do that. You can do that on your own.
Right.
So I did a tincture for myself for sleep. And I really love using tinctures with clients. It's just, you can really dial down the dosing so specifically to what people need. Because they're not, like I said, they're not coming to me to get high. They're coming to me to get better. And that's what like cannabis can help you get better. And that's why I love using cannabis and functional medicine together. Cannabis can help you, and other plant medicines can help you get better quicker. Well, that may not be the root cause of why you're having your symptoms, but then you can, it makes the process easier by getting at the root cause, because that's going to take some time digging in and, peeling that onion back and figuring out what is your unique root cause. Takes time, as you know. So I like to use the plant medicine and primarily cannabis to kind of make that transition easier. So a lot of my clients use tinctures. Inhalation is really effective for like acute things. So like a headaches, nausea, it can be the right combination, or the right strains can be really helpful for anxiety, like a panic attack. It can send you the wrong way too, if you're not
Right.
knowing kind of where to go. And so patches are really effective.
Okay.
Topicals, I like those as well.
I've been hearing a lot more about topicals. I feel like I might even have a neighbor who uses a topical for pain. And if so then like the something in my head will say like, oh, what about, like nervous about quality of things, where the source is, like, if I'm sourcing my vegetables to make sure that those are healthy, I certainly don't want to buy some, I don't know, tincture that's who knows what in it. And then I don't know. So how does one even ensure like quality and who there is? It just making sure you're seeing a reputable practitioner, and how do you even know that person's like,
Right.
where does someone even start?
How do you even
Yeah,
exactly?
yeah. How do you figure this out?
I mean, especially like with CBD, it's at like gas stations and like, it's like they had a CBD burger and like, like at whatever, at a fast food place in Denver
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Wow.
like,
Okay.
don't buy your CBD don't buy it from Amazon too. That's a big one.
Okay.
Because those aren't necessarily sourced very well. Uh, to go back to your question, it is like you need to have a practitioner that you can work with, that you trust. I have products that I have vetted, so I know like their extraction methods. I have reached out to the companies, and Colorado isn't the best at being super transparent on like tinctures. They
Okay.
like, as far as getting a certificate of analysis on the what's all in there. I struggle with that. But for like different like products that you would flower that you would inhale, like the weed that you would smoke, they should provide at a dispensary, they should provide a certificate of analysis that tells you like what if there's any fungus or any molds, any pesticides, any residual solvents that are in there, all of that, heavy metals, those sort of things should be disclosed. But you don't know, I mean, who knows how to look for that? It's like
Right.
that's
And I think, so I'm in the state of Florida, and I'm sure listeners could be in any state, right? There are states that are more open than others. In fact, I'm not even up on, I know that I think we have dispensaries here. I don't really know. I don't,
you do.
I think we have more legal issues here though, which is strange to me because usually we have like no rules in Florida. No, no, but we have some rules evidently around somebody's lobbying someone to make sure that that stays a little bit less. But I think that because there's such a difference across state lines too, that it's even more confusing for as a possible patient, me being maybe a possible patient, how I would even begin.
And that's where, yes, a lot of dispensaries partner with nurses. I'm a member of the American Cannabis Nurses Association, and we're big advocates for getting the right information to the patients because you deserve it.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to get it from, I mean, every dispensary, of course, is different.
Right.
But
Aren't they privately owned? Right. So, which I mean, I'm all for the, privately owned things. I'm not saying that this should be something that's like, but it's hard to know as a consumer, just like our food supply. I mean, let's even keep it as simple as that. It's very hard to know exactly where that apple came from. I mean, yes, you could, if you're buying it from a place that says organic, state of Washington or whatever, but you don't really know the tracking of how many places it went before it got to, Naples, Florida, let's say.
Totally. And, depending on every state, of course, has all their different laws with this as well, on where you can get products from. So like, I know the products that I'm getting at the dispensaries, I know where they're coming from because I've spoken to to the companies themselves, and knowing, like Colorado has been in the game for quite a while now, relatively speaking. And so the agricultural process for that, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just like how they grow it is done in a way that maybe other states might not be doing it as well.
As clean. Yeah. So the could someone in another state you help them to find the right, or is that it, because does it get tricky with state lines, like if someone lives in I don't know, Wyoming and you're in Colorado, and how does that work? Is it like licenses with our medical license?
Right. And I am a nurse practitioner in my business, in my consulting business. I work under as a health consultant. That just happens to be a nurse practitioner.
Right.
However, I follow my nurse practitioner scope of practice and laws and work with people within the state of Colorado for cannabis help. So like someone in Wyoming, they, I actually don't even know I don't know the laws of Wyoming for in the state themselves. I think they're a medical state. I don't think they're an adult use state. So they would have to go, work with someone to get a medical their medical card or, however they call it. So I would not necessarily, no, I wouldn't be able to help.
Yeah. So see, I think
is
that's
my
sort of
legal answer.
Yes. So to me, there's a lot of this gray of, and just to go on a side note. So Dennis, my husband, he ends up using the CBD cream or something on his hand. He's tried different ones. He feels like one works better than the other, whatever. There's like no quality. I mean, like nobody knows exactly what it's, so I guess maybe it's just sort of like do your research, try to, certainly though, people can reach out to you about the consulting and get a little bit more information about how to, begin even a process of healing, and what they could then work for in their certain states and whatever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So I think it's also starting somewhere with someone that you can trust and getting the right knowledge. You would do that for anything. Like, I mean, I think people ask more questions when it comes to buying a new mattress than they do about some of the health things that we actually ingest or take. So what do you think are the biggest myths around cannabis? Like, I mean, I know we sort of alluded to them with a little bit of the, movies of the past and all of that, but like, I know one I can think of would be that it's gonna take away my brain. Like, I'm not gonna be as sharp.
Yes. And there is some effects that cannabis definitely can have on memory, which is what some people use it for. So like PTSD, folks with PTSD comes to mind. Like they want to forget those memories. So that is a benefit to them. For those that do have that memory, maybe short-term memory loss, when you stop cannabis, then it returns. I haven't worked very intensely with those with PTSD to know that firsthand, but speaking to other people, that is the case. But you know what? For most of those people, like they don't want to stop because it helps them so much. So memory is a big one. Although we were joking about it, but there's so many ways to use cannabis that don't involve getting high. Like I wasn't like taking, bottles of my tincture, like get high to go to bed.
Right.
And there's definitely, the ways that I help with my clients is using it for them to get relief of their symptoms, but for them to not like feel maybe the perceived negative effects. And there's ways you balance between THC and CBD and some of the other cannabinoids to really get dialed into what people want. So it's not like, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is it's not for stoners. Like you don't have to be a stoner to use cannabis. I'm a mom. I got 2 kids. I'm a soccer mom, actually, like a legit soccer mom. I'm working healthcare, married, I'm not.
Yeah, this is not a Netflix show, right? This is not a Netflix show where we're trying to have a lot of drama and being high and
totally.
Okay, we're just trying to be well. Okay. So when and I know we only have so much time today, and obviously we could go on and on and on. And I so appreciate you being here. But, we were talking about like, is plant medicine right for you? And like, if someone's listening to this and they're kind of like, I don't know. I mean, how would they know if this might be something they should pursue? What kind of symptoms, or I know we sort of talked a little bit about headaches, sleep problems. Can you give some other examples of if it might be right for you if you're having X, Y, or Z?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people right now is just like stress. And we know how
Yeah.
detrimental stress is on the body. It's a real thing. And getting out of that sympathetic nervous system into that parasympathetic nervous system, from flight or fight into rest and digest, cannabis is incredible for that. So that can be something that I, help people with. The pain we mentioned, but anxiety and depression can be really helpful. The sleep is a huge one.
I bet.
That's one of the biggest ones that people come to see me for. And just like wanting to just find some joy, like having something that can just kind of help you relax and find some joy. And like kind of one of the stigma thing too that I like to talk about and kind of maybe destigmatize, like, why is it okay to like down a bunch of glasses of wine at night, but having some cannabis like that's taboo, and that's, terrible to do to unwind when, one might actually be helping.
There's a lot of commercialization. I was, when I kind of went on, not really drinking anything for a while, and I really don't have much at this point, but there is a conditioning that's gone on around wine, women in wine, women need wine. And honestly, there's a lot of wines out there that are full of stuff. Sugar's one thing, but also pesticides. I mean, there's like a lot of things to it. Yeah, exactly. And so you're right in that. I think it's just it depends on who the messaging is coming from and what the financial gain is from that. There's a lot of gain from having a lot of people buying alcohol, and maybe that's kind of like, I always say, follow the money.
Yeah, and for sure.
Yeah. So but I will say that this has been, you hear more and more about it. Like I said, I have perfectly normal older neighbors using this for pain. I haven't dug into exactly what or how, but I know that it is helpful for neuropathy. Does that sound also like something that you should be? Neuropathy pain is one thing, and I think chronic pain associated with certain autoimmune conditions. It can be, right?
It is. And I didn't mention like autoimmune and digestive stuff. It can be really helpful for that. And like people maybe talk about cannabis as being a gateway drug. I really think of it as like an exit. Like you can add in cannabis, and then maybe like for your neuropathy, you can get rid of that gabapentin that's actually probably causing more harm. Or, with some of the autoimmune stuff, that you can slowly back away around some of these drugs that are actually making your condition worse.
Yes. Yes. That's so good. So good. So, can you share just a little bit before we end today on, like, with your health consultant work, is it individualistic? Is it group? Is it both? Kind of the things that you offer, I think that could be helpful for people to learn about. And of course, we'll put a link in the show notes so that we can get more information, but it's always great to hear kind of what you enjoy doing most and what you're working on now.
Yeah. And there's something coming hot off the press tomorrow, actually. So
wow.
I'm really excited about that. So, my first step into this is one-on-one work, and it's a 6-month program that I work intensely one-on-one with people. That has been like my mainstay. And the hot off the press is I have a semi-private group that is launching tomorrow, and I'm only accepting five people into this group. It's going to be 12 weeks. And we're going to dive into doing, there's going to be some functional medicine testing in that. It's going to be weekly visits in the group setting. We'll be doing some cannabis education as a wink, wink. That's how I have to, what I have to call it.
Yes.
So it's going to be a personalized with some personalized aspects.
Yeah, I love that. Because
Yeah.
there's power in that group of like, well, one, you're not alone. And then two, somebody asks a question, you're like, oh, that was my question. That's really helpful. I didn't even know I had that question. Now that answer is like going to help me a lot. So I do think that's a really powerful setting. Is this do you have to be living in Colorado to take part in this, or?
No, you don't.
Anywhere.
It can be from anywhere.
Okay, great. So what we'll want to do though is put that information in the show notes too. And then even if someone is listening to this at a later time, sometimes you'll find us down the road. I'm sure that if they're linking up to your website, you'll have the most current thing going on. And before we go, do you mind sharing any tips, or maybe just a couple of your top tips on sort of de-stressing over this last year has been a lot, and everybody's reacted in their own way. I don't think there's a bad way. I don't think there's a good way. I think it's just like, we're just maintaining, pushing through, some maybe doing better emotionally than others, but all of us have felt an increased stress and anxiety. I was wondering if you have a couple tips on the top things you would recommend someone starting like today, right now, for themselves, to really make an impact on their health to come.
I think one thing is, I like to say, quit being a shithead. Like, quit, like, let's all give ourselves some grace. And as you're saying, like, everybody has been dealing with things differently. Like, take a deep breath. Let's let our expectations go. This last 12, 13 months has not been what anyone had planned or expected. And let's move forward. Let's move forward with what we have now and what we know now. And then around stress reduction too, is I am a big fan of breath work. I like to start every day before like reaching for my phone, before, every day of just being present and doing some deep breathing. Because when you reach for your phone, you're like giving yourself to someone else right away,
Yes.
So like you go right into that reactionary mode. So if we can just sit there and do like just 5 minutes of some deep breaths. I like to do box breathing. If you know that one, like inhale 5, 8 seconds, hold it, then we can do it together.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to blow out through my mouth. I always blow through my nose. I don't know why.
Either way, I think it all works.
So you like inhale 5 seconds or 8, whatever, I like to just do 5. Hold it for 5 seconds, then exhale for 5 seconds, then hold that for 5 seconds. And that can really kind of tap into your vagus nerve and get into your parasympathetic nervous system again. And you start your day off right. If you start your day kind of just like chilled out, less stressed, then when because every day something new is coming at us, we react maybe in a little bit of an easier way, and it doesn't have such a like detrimental effect on our body. And our cortisol level is starting off lower instead of starting off up here. So I find that helpful. And then I think the breathing through the nose is pretty crucial, actually. So can't believe I
breathing out. Sometimes they tell you to sigh, like, like when you're really letting it out. But yeah, it's good. And it's so, breathing is such a simple, free thing to do. And I found that the mask wearing, the upside, the silver lining in all the mask wearing I've been doing the last year, especially at work, has been like, I try to focus on my nose breathing, because when you're a mouth breather, just by design, you don't realize how much you're doing it till you wear a mask, and then you really feel the heat. And so nose breathing can really help too, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you coming on. I really would love to have you back. And we could just go deeper for this, because I feel like there's a lot to this, and it is something that can help a lot of people. I think you're going to help a lot of people, and that's a great ripple effect. We'll put all the information in the show notes. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. And I'd love to come back. This has been great. Thank you.